Hello friends, welcome to JQuery tutorial. In this video, we are going to learn about the CSS method. So we will apply inline styling with the CSS method, and we will see how we are implementing the click event for original, make big and make small. In the last video, we created the basic HTML. Now let's go ahead towards the JavaScript side. Right. In the last sub-series, we kept a CSS styling in a separate file. Right. We usually have a HTML file, a CSS file, and then a JavaScript file. We applied these styles to the jQuery picked elements using add class. Right. So add class is the method which we used previously, and we defined the CSS rule for a class. Right, inside that rule we will specify the CSS style, and inside the JavaScript we pick the jQuery picked element and then make call to our class method, and we point to the CSS class rule, and yeah, so based on that we applied the styles. That's what we did previously. jQuery also allows applying the style using the CSS method. So add class method will just add a class attribute, but here using the CSS method you can apply any CSS style to the jQuery picked element. When we pass the property name as a parameter, the CSS method returns a property value. So that's one way of using the CSS method. Right, say for example, if you pass border width as a parameter, then the CSS method will return what is the current value of border parameter for the specific CSS object. So it goes like this. Using the dollar method or any DOM element, you can make a call to CSS method. So when you use the dollar method, you can pass the selection string and it returns object. We know that, right? Or using any other technique, if you pick the JavaScript object, then you can make a call to CSS method, and to this CSS method you can pass any CSS style. So that's why here we are taking an example of border width, and when you pass border width, it will return current width for the specific element on which you are calling this CSS method. We can also set a CSS property by passing two parameters to it. So if you see, there are two overloaded versions, right? When you pass only one parameter, it will return what is the current value. When you pass two parameters, first one denotes the property name, right, and second one denotes the property value. So if we take the same border width example, you can pass border width as a first parameter to the CSS method. Then what new value you want to set, so that you can pass as a second parameter. You see how powerful this CSS is. You can apply any CSS style. Now we will add a script for the example, and you will see how we are using the CSS style. Remember, we have a button group. In that we placed 3 HTML buttons. Each button can be retrieved using their ID. Then we have one more div tag, and in that we had a class attribute called para. Inside the div we have two paragraphs. Now let's look at the JavaScript. So here we kept the HTML file for reference. In the script, we select all the div elements which contains the class attribute para. If you see, here we have the para. And this is how our code runs. And here document ready starts and ends. Inside that we are making a selection rule, $. The selection is div dot para, right? That means select all the div element that contains class attribute para, right? So it will select div. There is only one div element and which contains para, so this div element will be selected and we call it as paragraphs. That means here we are not dealing with the individual paragraph. Instead, we are dealing with the parent or simply the group, right? And we call that group as paragraph. So if we want to apply any style to the individual paragraph, you can apply the style to this parent. And if you go ahead and modify to have one more paragraph, whatever style you apply to the parent will get applied to the newly added paragraph as well. Alright, so then using CSS method we get initial font size. So here we have paragraph, and if you see how we are using the CSS method, this is the object we are storing, right? Div para. So by walking through the DOM element using the JQuery function, we picked this element and we stored that as a variable paragraph. Then on the variable paragraph, we are making call to CSS. That means on div tag, you are making call to CSS, and to this CSS method, you are supplying the font size, right? Here, when we supply font size, it will return current font size, and we are storing that in the initial size. The click event handler is for all three buttons, right? Hash text size, that means here we are selecting the paragraph, space button, that means here we have array of a button, right? Hash text size, so any element having the ID text size. So as per the rule of HTML and CSS, when you define ID, it should be unique. So here we picked the div, then with a space we are specifying button. That means we are asking give me all the buttons that is enclosed by the HTML element that contains ID text size. Simply we are asking give me all the button inside this div tag. So this will give the array, right? $text size button. Then on that array, so here we will get array of 3 buttons. On that we are calling click. That means we are handling the click event for all 3 buttons. User may click plus or minus button multiple time, right? This is our HTML buttons. They can click plus or minus multiple time. If they click plus multiple time, we need to increase the font gradually, right? And the moment they click minus, we have to reduce the font size, right? That means here we have already initialized the font size with the current value, right? It is useful if we want to restore the original font size. Original in the sense when the document is loaded, that time we retrieved the size. This acts as a original size or initial size. So we store the current font size, and you can see that it's initial size, and we need to store that inside the click also. That's why here we once again make a call to paragraph.css font size pars float size. So this is initial size and this one is current size, right? Why? Because here we are handling the click event, right? For any button at this moment, this code runs for any button. When you click original or when you click plus or minus, whatever button you click, it will run this code. That means it takes what is the current size. The current size may be different after the document load, because we don't know how many time user clicked the buttons, plus or minus, right? And how many time they clicked it, we don't know. That's why when click event is happening, we are taking the font size, current font size, right? And we are storing that here, because we are going to modify it, because we don't know which button user is clicked at this moment. Whether they clicked the plus or minus, we don't know. Or they may even click the current button, I mean the original button. Alright, we store the current font size, and if you see, the parse float rule here is to retrieve the number on this font size. Paragraph.css, it will return the value in terms of a string. So using parse float, we are storing the original font size in number format. The switch case decides what font size to set based on the button click. So here we get the initial size because we are going to apply a new font size based on the user click. Right? So if you see here, we are forming the switch case. Right? This dot id, this here denotes currently clicked button. So we learned that in the previous sub-series when we learned about the events. That time we told that when you have a common handler, you can make use of this to know the click event source, right? We don't know whether user clicked original, minus, or plus, right? But when you refer this is a common handler, right, for all three buttons. We know that this will return array of 3, and we are defining the click event handler, and we are writing code for all 3 buttons. That's why we need to know which button user clicked, right? This will run for all 3 buttons, and inside, if you see, we wrote code for specific button. This dot id will give us the button id. Based on that, we are forming the switch case, original, plus, or minus. And when it is original, we have the variable initial size during the document load, right? And we take that and we assign the size. So from current size, we replace that with the initial size that we captured during the document load. So if it is plus, we make use of the currently running code, click event code, right? This will run for any button, and we retrieve the current paragraph size. And if it is a plus, then we are increasing the font size by 6 pixels. Otherwise, we are decreasing it by 6 pixels. And if you see, when we use the number, the parse float, we already have the parse float applied here for the size, right? So we are just doing the math of +6 and -6 based on the button click. Finally, we use the same CSS method to apply the font size style to all paragraph, which is contained inside the div tag, right? So paragraph.css, here we already retrieved, right, paragraph. That means the parent div we retrieved, parent div.css. And if you look at here, we are using the second overloaded version of CSS. Here, if you see, we used the first overload. We just specify the CSS style and we retrieved the value, right? Font size we retrieved. Here we are setting the font size. Paragraph.css, the style is font size and value is a size, whatever we calculated, right? And towards the end, we are applying the pixel. Say, for example, if it is 16, we need to put 16 pixel. The moment here we add this string, even though this is the number format because we parsed it, the moment we add this string, the whole thing will become a string, right? And we are giving that as a value to the paragraph tag. Right? So now the CSS will set the font size for this specific element, which is nothing but a div tag. Alright, here we are talking about this paragraph. This time we use overloaded version to set new value for the font size CSS style. See how we add the px with the size value, this part. Why? Because we need to send a string as a value for this font size. And if you give just 16, it may be an invalid value for the CSS style font size. That's why we append px. That's how CSS works, right? Now let's go to the demo. Alright, we'll go to the script. We will copy this and paste here. And we will rename this as example2. So we already have a script, right? And in the PowerPoint slide we saw the script. So let's just dictate or paste that script here. So this is the script we are writing, and as we already saw, pick the paragraph default size, right? This we are doing at the document load itself, right? After that, we are handling the click event for all 3 buttons, and we are taking the initial size and we are storing that. So this is the initial size during the document load, and this one is a current size, right? Then we form switch case based on the comment event handler. This will give the currently clicked button. Then we have the specific statement for the buttons, right? Finally, after the switch case, we are making call to paragraph.css and we give the overloaded version. We call the overloaded version and we give font size and its value. Alright, now let's save this and see how the click events are behaving. And this time, if you see, we have HTML script, and if there is any CSS, we can even keep CSS also inside the single file. The recommended method is having a separate file for HTML and for CSS and for JavaScript. Alright, now so document is loaded. During the document load itself, we store this initial size, or we can say the original font size. Now let's go ahead with the make big, and you can see font size got increased now, right? You can also make a call to make small, right? When you click original size, it will restore the original. Why? Because we stored that during the document load itself. You can do this multiple times. Since we stored this original, the original font will get restored when you make a call to the original. When you make a call to the click event, it refers the initial size that got loaded during the document load, right? This is the event handler for document load, and this is the handler for document load, and this click event handler is for the specific button click, but we do the hooking during the document load. So this is done during the document load, right? Hooking the click event, but the body of this handler will run whenever user clicks the button. You see? That's all here in this video. You learned how to use the CSS and both the overloaded functions. Overload 1. This is overload 2 example. Just now you saw the demo. Thank you for watching. Bye.